My name is Claire Bennett. I'm 36 years old, and until 6 years ago, I believed I knew exactly who my husband was. The first lie Daniel Bennett ever told in court wasn't about the money. It was about our daughter. He pointed at me, looked the judge straight in the eye, and said I could no longer remember how Lily died. For a moment, the courtroom believed him. After all, grieving mothers forget things. That's what everyone had been told for years. But 5 minutes later, Daniel made one mistake that began destroying every lie he had spent the last 6 years building. He sat beneath the state seal, raised his right hand, and wore the same calm expression he had perfected over 15 years of marriage. Our daughter died 6 years ago, he told the judge. Since then, Claire's memory has never been the same. People nodded. Some even looked at me with sympathy. Because Daniel never sounded cruel. He sounded concerned. That was always his greatest weapon. My wife has always struggled with memory, he said. After our daughter died, it became much worse. The courtroom went quiet. I felt the air leave my chest. Our daughter, Lily, had been gone for 6 years. Daniel had not said her name in months. Not at home. Not in therapy. Not even on the anniversary of her death. But now, with strangers watching, he used her like evidence. His attorney, Gregory Shaw, lowered his voice. Did Mrs. Bennett's condition affect her ability to manage the family's finances? Daniel looked toward me. Not directly. Just enough to make it appear painful. Yes. And did you attempt to help her? For years. How? I took over the bills. I monitored her accounts. I tried to protect our home and her accounting practice from impulsive decisions. I almost stood up. My attorney, Olivia Grant, touched my wrist beneath the table. Not yet, she whispered. Daniel continued. He said I misplaced checks, forgot payments, invented conversations, accused him of stealing whenever I could not remember moving money myself. Then he leaned forward slightly. The notebook was part of it. Gregory Shaw lifted a black spiral notebook, sealed inside a clear evidence bag. My notebook. The one I had carried in my purse for 7 years. The one Daniel used to tease me about. The one that now looked, under the courtroom lights, less like a journal and more like a weapon. What did Mrs. Bennett write in it? Gregory asked. Everything, Daniel said. What I ate, when I came home, what I said at dinner. It became obsessive. After Lily died, Claire needed to believe someone was responsible for every bad thing that happened. The lie was so cruel that for 1 second, I understood why people confess to things they did not do. Not because they are weak. Because fighting every false detail is exhausting. Have you ever listened to someone rearrange your life so carefully that even you begin to wonder whether they remember it better? That was Daniel's talent. He never shouted when a whisper would do more damage. He never called me crazy. He said he was worried. He never said I was incapable. He said I needed rest. He never told people not to trust me. He simply told them how much he loved me while slowly explaining why they should doubt everything I said. And for years it worked. The judge looked at the notebook, then at me, then back at Daniel. What happened to your daughter? He asked. Daniel lowered his eyes. She drowned. The word moved through me like cold water. Olivia tightened her grip on my wrist. Daniel continued. Claire blamed herself, then she blamed me. Eventually she blamed everyone. I stared at him. Because that was not what happened. Not even close. And Daniel knew it. The judge made a note. Then Daniel's attorney asked the question that made my mother begin crying in the second row. Did Mrs. Bennett ever threaten to destroy you financially? Daniel waited. He always knew how long to wait. Yes. When? The night she found the insurance policy. My stomach turned. He had just brought the policy into the record himself. Olivia slowly looked at me. For the first time that morning, I saw surprise in her face. Not fear. Recognition. Daniel had made a mistake. He did not know it yet. Neither did his attorney. But one lie had opened the door to a question he had spent years making sure no one would ask. Before Judge Holloway asked that question, before Daniel's story collapsed under its own weight, I had believed betrayal began with secrecy. I was wrong. It began with kindness. When I met Daniel, I was 21 and working evenings at a small tax office near campus. He was studying supply chain management and had the kind of calm confidence that made other people lower their voices around him. He was not handsome in an obvious way. He became handsome the longer you watched him. He remembered the waitress's name. He called his mother every Sunday. He once walked 6 blocks in the rain because I had mentioned that the coffee near my apartment tasted better. Everyone trusted him. My father trusted him within 10 minutes. My mother loved him before I did. When he proposed 4 years later, he did it in my parents' kitchen because he knew that was where I felt safest. Daniel did not sweep me off my feet. He built a floor beneath them. That was why I did not notice when he began removing it. Our first home was a 2-bedroom brick house with yellow cabinets and a maple tree that dropped leaves faster than we could rake them. I started my accounting practice at the dining table. Daniel worked long hours at a regional logistics company. We were not wealthy, but everything felt shared. He packed my lunch when I had early client meetings. I proofread his MBA assignments after midnight. Every small victory belonged to both of us. When I signed my first major client, Daniel brought home champagne. When he was promoted, I organized a surprise dinner. Then Lily was born. She had Daniel's dark hair and my habit of frowning in her sleep. For 4 years, our lives became measured in small things. Pink socks in the laundry, apple slices without the peel, cartoons before breakfast, crayon marks beneath the dining table. Daniel was a gentle father. That is the part people struggle to understand. Bad people are not bad every minute. Sometimes they sing lullabies. Sometimes they carry sleeping children from the car. Sometimes they stand beside you in family photographs and look exactly like the future you prayed for. Lily died on a Sunday in July. We were at Daniel's brother's lake house for a family cookout. There were 11 adults, 5 children, music playing, food on the grill. Someone left the side gate open. No one noticed Lily walk toward the water. By the time we found her, it was too late. There are moments that divide your life so completely that every memory becomes either before or after. That afternoon was ours. After the funeral, Daniel became quiet. I became mechanical. I answered sympathy cards, washed dishes, folded Lily's clothes, and unfolded them again. My mother stayed with us for 2 weeks. Daniel's mother, Evelyn, visited every morning. Everyone had advice. Sleep. Eat. Pray. Try again someday. No one understood that grief had changed the shape of the rooms. The house still had walls, but it no longer felt like shelter. 3 months later, Daniel suggested therapy. I agreed. He attended 4 sessions. Then he stopped. "This is making it worse," he said. I continued alone. At night, I wrote down what the therapist told me. Grief creates gaps. Trauma changes memory. Write down what you fear forgetting. That was how the notebook began. Not because I was unstable, because I was trying to survive. At first, I wrote about Lily, her favorite cereal, the way she said yellow, the scar above her left eyebrow from falling off her scooter. Then I began writing ordinary things too. Daniel called plumber, paid electric bill. Evelyn brought soup. Mortgage due Friday. The notebook gave my days edges. Daniel used to smile when he saw it. You write down everything. I'm afraid I will forget her. You won't. How do you know? He would kiss my forehead. I'll remember enough for both of us. For a long time, that sentence comforted me. Years later, it would become the sentence that made me understand the entire marriage differently. 6 months after Lily died, I returned to work. My small accounting practice had nearly collapsed during my absence, but my office manager, Ruth Delgado, had kept it alive. Ruth was 62, blunt, loyal, and impossible to impress. She had worked for 3 accounting firms before joining mine and treated every tax deadline like a military operation. On my first morning back, she placed a cup of coffee on my desk. You can cry in here, she said, but clients do not get free extensions because your husband forgot to file something. I laughed for the first time in months. Ruth became more than an employee. She became the person who told me the truth without making it cruel. Over the next 5 years, the firm grew. 3 clients became 30. 30 became 200. We moved from the dining table to a rented office, then into a renovated building downtown. Daniel celebrated each step, at least publicly. At dinners, he raised his glass. My wife is the smartest person in the room. At home, the compliments became questions. Do you have to work Saturday? Why does Ruth call you after dinner? Do you really need another employee? Then, quietly, he began helping more. He paid the household bills, organized the insurance, managed our joint investments. You focus on the firm, he said. I'll handle home. It sounded loving. It also gave him access. The first missing payment was small. A utility bill. Daniel said he had paid it. The company said he had not. He blamed their system. Then our property tax installment arrived late. Daniel blamed the bank. Then a credit card appeared in my name. He called it a marketing offer. Every incident had an explanation. No single explanation sounded impossible. That was why I did not see the pattern. People imagine betrayal as a locked phone, lipstick on a collar, or a hotel receipt. But sometimes betrayal is a stack of ordinary envelopes on a kitchen counter. Sometimes the person hurting you keeps doing the dishes. On the first anniversary of Lily's death, Daniel took me to the lake house. I did not want to go. He said avoiding it would give the place power. We stood near the water while the family planted a small dogwood tree. Evelyn held my hand. Daniel's brother, Eric, cried openly. Afterward, while everyone ate inside, I found Daniel in the garage speaking to a woman I did not recognize. She wore a cream coat despite the heat. She handed him a folder. When Daniel saw me, his expression changed. Only for a second. Then he smiled. This is Vanessa Cole. She consults for my company. Vanessa held out her hand. I am sorry for your loss. Her voice was careful. Not warm. Not cold. Careful. What is in the folder? I asked. Daniel laughed softly. Work. On a Sunday. Logistics never sleeps. Vanessa glanced at him. Then at me. Something passed between them. Not desire. Fear. That bothered me more. On the drive home, I asked whether he was having an affair. Daniel pulled the car to the side of the road. He looked devastated. Is that what grief has done to us? The question worked exactly as he intended. I apologized. He comforted me. By the time we reached home, I felt guilty for suspecting him. That night I wrote, met Vanessa Cole at Lake House. Daniel says consultant, asked if affair. He said grief changed us. 2 weeks later, a bank called to confirm a home equity line. I had not applied for one. Daniel said he had explored options, but never finalized anything. A month later, an insurance policy arrived. $250,000. My name is the insured. Daniel as beneficiary. My signature on the form. Except it was not my signature. When I showed him, he barely looked surprised. They probably copied it from the refinancing forms. What refinancing forms? He froze, then recovered. The documents from last year. We did not refinance last year. Then I'm mixing it up with something else. You said they copied my signature. It was a guess, Claire. How did you know the signature was copied? He sighed and touched my arm. You are doing it again. Doing what? Turning confusion into accusation. Then he said the words that would follow me for years. You cannot punish me because your memory is unreliable. I stared at him. He had never said it that directly before. That night, I wrote every word. Insurance policy. Daniel said signature copied from refinancing forms. There were no refinancing forms. Says my memory is unreliable. I also wrote the time. 8:47 p.m. For the next 8 months, I tried to become less suspicious. I worked fewer evenings, cooked dinner more often, returned to therapy. Daniel told everyone I was improving. That phrase bothered me. Improving implied diagnosis. But whenever I objected, he looked hurt. I am proud of you. His mother began calling twice a week. Are you sleeping? Are you taking your medication? I was not taking medication. When I told her that, she sounded surprised. Daniel said the doctor prescribed something. I confronted him. He laughed. I must have misunderstood. Another misunderstanding. Another harmless error. Then something happened at Christmas. My parents hosted dinner. Daniel gave my father an expensive watch, and my mother a framed photograph of Lily. Everyone cried. After dessert, I went upstairs to find wrapping paper. From the hallway, I heard Daniel speaking to my father in the study. I am worried she is becoming reckless. My father lowered his voice. Financially. In every way. What do you need from us? Nothing yet. Just if Claire says something strange, call me before reacting. I stood outside the door, holding a roll of silver paper. My own father had just agreed to verify my reality through my husband. I walked downstairs before they saw me. That night, I did not confront Daniel. I wrote it down. Christmas, Daniel told Dad to call him if I say something strange. That entry changed something in me. Until then, I thought Daniel was hiding money. Now I understood he was preparing witnesses. The next morning, I opened a bank account he did not know about. I changed the password to my business systems. I asked Ruth to alert me if Daniel requested documents. She did not ask why. She only said, finally. I looked at her. You knew. I knew he asks questions that are none of his business. What kind of questions? How much the firm is worth, whether it could be sold, whether you keep physical copies of signatures. My hands went cold. When? Over the last year. Why did you not tell me? I did, twice. You said he was helping with estate planning. I did not remember those conversations. Or maybe I remembered them as something else. That was the first moment I understood how manipulation damages memory. Not by erasing events, by changing their meaning. 3 weeks later, Ruth intercepted a request sent from my email account for employee payroll records and owner distributions. I had not sent it. The request originated from my home internet. I called Olivia Grant that afternoon. Olivia was 48, sharp, composed, and known for speaking softly when everyone else became loud. I brought the notebook, the insurance policy, the bank letters, and the email request. She read for almost an hour. Then she asked one question. Has Daniel ever told you that no one would believe you? I thought about it. No. Has he behaved as if no one would? That answer was easier. Yes. Olivia connected me with Marcus Lee, a forensic accountant who wore wrinkled shirts and noticed everything. Within 6 weeks, he found $170,000 in loans and credit accounts connected to my identity. Some money had been transferred into North Harbor Consulting, Vanessa Cole's company. Other funds had gone through 3 shell companies and into distressed properties outside the city. The legal owner was Vanessa. The loan guarantees relied on my income. Daniel had not simply stolen money. He had used my business as proof that the debt was safe. The more successful I became, the more valuable I was to his scheme. Then Marcus found something that made the fraud feel secondary. A payment to a private investigator. What was he investigating? I asked. Marcus looked at Olivia. Olivia answered. You. The investigator had photographed me entering therapy, meeting clients, having coffee with Ruth, visiting Lily's grave. Daniel had been collecting images of my grief. Not to understand it, to frame it. One photograph showed me sitting beside Lily's grave with my head in my hands. Another showed Ruth helping me into a car after I became dizzy during a panic attack. In Daniel's legal file, the captions read, "Episodes of emotional instability, dependence on employees, confusion in public." I was looking at my own pain, translated into evidence against me. Would you have confronted him then? I wanted to. Olivia stopped me. If he knows what we have, he will destroy the rest. So I returned home. I cooked dinner, asked about his day, slept beside him, and every night, after he fell asleep, I wrote down one more fact. That was the loneliest month of my life. Not because I knew my husband hated me, because I still could not fully believe he did. Some evenings he looked tired and ordinary. He scratched Cooper behind the ears, complained about traffic, asked whether I wanted tea, and for a few minutes, I wondered whether we had misunderstood everything. Then another document appeared. Another transfer. Another lie. The most dangerous people are not convincing because they are monsters. They are convincing because they can still look human while doing monstrous things. Daniel filed for divorce before we were ready. I was served at my office in front of Ruth and 2 clients. His petition claimed I had hidden income, created unauthorized debts, and become mentally unstable after Lily's death. He asked for half the firm, control of the house, protection from the debt, and temporary authority over our financial accounts. Attached were statements from Evelyn, Eric, and my father. My father. I called him. He sounded ashamed. Daniel said it was to stop you from losing the business. You signed a statement saying I was confused. I thought it was temporary. You thought my mind was temporary. He began crying. I hung up. That betrayal hurt differently. Daniel had not just isolated me. He had recruited people who loved me. Then he called. His voice was gentle. Claire, this does not have to become ugly. You already made it ugly. I am trying to protect what we built. You used Lily. Silence. Then he said, do not make me tell the court everything. What does that mean? You know what happened at the lake. My skin turned cold. For 6 years, Daniel had never blamed me for Lily's death. Not directly. Now he was threatening to. What are you saying? You were supposed to watch her. So were 10 other adults. But you were her mother. I could not speak. Then he lowered his voice. If the judge believes grief affected your judgment, the court may protect you from yourself. Protect you from yourself. That was how he described taking everything. After the call, I opened the notebook. My hands shook so badly I could barely write. Daniel threatened to blame me for Lily. Then I noticed an old page near the beginning. The day Lily died. I had written only fragments. Lake house. Side gate open. Daniel left after phone call. Vanessa's name did not appear. At the time, I had not known her. But something about the entry bothered me. Daniel left after phone call. Where had he gone? I called Eric. At first, he refused to speak. Then I told him Daniel had opened a credit card in his name. He went quiet. What? I can send proof. 20 minutes later, he called back. His voice had changed. What do you want to know? The day Lily died, where was Daniel? Eric hesitated. In the boathouse. With whom? I do not know. Why? He was on the phone, arguing. For how long? Maybe 20 minutes. Before or after Lily went missing? Before. That meant Daniel had not been watching the children. Neither had I. Neither had half the adults. But Daniel had spent years allowing me to carry the entire blame, while knowing he had been distracted too. Then Eric said something else. I saw a woman's car near the service road. What woman? I never saw her face. Did Daniel leave with her? No, she drove away when people started searching. My mind returned to Vanessa's careful expression at the memorial. The folder. The fear. Had she been at the lake that day? Marcus searched phone records. A number connected to Vanessa had called Daniel 3 times the afternoon Lily died. One call lasted 17 minutes. Daniel had not merely known Vanessa before the funeral. He had been working with her before our daughter died. The fraud had begun earlier than we thought. But that created another question. What had they been discussing so urgently that Daniel left the family gathering? We found the answer on an old backup drive Ruth had saved from our home computer after a software upgrade. Draft emails. Property spreadsheets. Insurance quotes. The insurance policy on my life had been researched 2 weeks before Lily died. Daniel and Vanessa had been considering using our house as collateral for their first investment. Lily's death did not create Daniel's plan. It protected it. While I was grieving, he took control of everything. While people expected me to be forgetful, he created paperwork in my name. While I doubted my memory, he rewrote our finances. And when I began noticing, he used grief to explain why no one should trust me. Still, one piece did not fit. Why had Vanessa disappeared? Why had she left behind properties worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? The answer came from Evelyn. 2 days before court, she asked to meet me in a church parking lot. She looked smaller than I remembered. I lied in the statement, she said. You signed it. Daniel said you were going to destroy the family. He was stealing from me. I know that now. She gave me a flash drive. Eric found a card in his name. When he confronted Daniel, Daniel said everyone had benefited. Benefited from what? The lake house. I stared at her. Evelyn began crying. The property had been close to foreclosure the summer Lily died. Daniel had secretly used one of my early business credit lines to save it. Vanessa helped structure the loan. After Lily's death, insurance money from a separate family policy paid off part of the debt. Not a policy on Lily. A liability settlement tied to the property. The family had known money arrived after the accident. They did not know it had been routed through one of Daniel's companies. That was why Evelyn protected him. She thought exposing him would cost the family the lake house. Daniel had turned their guilt into loyalty. But the flash drive contained more than financial records. There were voice notes. In one recording, Vanessa argued with Daniel. You said Claire approved the second loan. She will. You forged her name. She does not remember half of what she signs. This is getting dangerous. She is still grieving. Everyone expects confusion. Then Vanessa said something that made Olivia pause the recording. What happens when she finds out about the insurance policy? Daniel laughed. I'll tell her it was copied from the refinancing forms. The exact sentence from my notebook. Recorded months before he used it on me. We finally knew why Vanessa disappeared. She had recorded Daniel for protection. When he discovered it, he threatened to make her responsible for everything. She fled, but we still could not locate her. Without her testimony, Daniel's attorney could argue the recordings were edited. The morning of the hearing, Olivia told me the truth. We have enough to raise serious questions. We may not have enough to finish this today. I nodded. What happens if the judge believes him? We keep fighting. And if he gets control of the firm? We appeal. I looked toward the courtroom doors. I do not know whether I can survive another year of this. Olivia answered quietly. You already survived the part that was designed to make you doubt yourself. Court is only paperwork. Then Daniel testified. He told the judge I had become unstable after Lily died. He said I invented fraud because I could not accept responsibility for the accident. He said the notebook was proof of obsession. He described the insurance policy as something I had threatened him over. Then Gregory Shaw asked, Did your wife ever accuse you of benefiting from your daughter's death? Daniel closed his eyes. Yes. I had never said that. Not once. But the accusation was now in the room. My mother cried. My father stared at the floor. Evelyn covered her mouth. Daniel looked like a grieving father, forced to reveal his wife's cruelty. It was his best performance. Then Olivia cross-examined him. She asked about Denver. He claimed he attended a conference. Airline records showed he canceled the flight. He said he drove. Conference records showed he never checked in. He blamed a badge error. A loan application had been submitted from my laptop and home internet while I was at work. He said someone else could have used it. Olivia showed the email instructing me to leave the laptop home for an update. Daniel said he did not remember writing it. She showed the private investigator payments. He said he hired the investigator because he feared for me. She showed the photographs labeled emotional instability. He said the captions were not his. She showed the voice note transcript. His attorney objected. The judge allowed limited questioning, but reserved a ruling on authenticity. Daniel denied recognizing the recording. Then Evelyn testified. She admitted lying in her statement. Gregory Shaw made her look confused and self-interested. My father testified. He admitted Daniel had asked him to report unusual behavior. Gregory made him look like a guilty parent, changing his story to protect his daughter. Eric testified about the hidden credit card. Gregory argued it had nothing to do with my accounts. By late afternoon, every truth seemed to have an explanation. That is the problem with skilled liars. They do not need to prove they are innocent. They only need to make truth look complicated. The judge called a recess. In the hallway, I sat alone near a vending machine. My mother approached. I am sorry. I looked at her. For believing him. For asking him whether you were telling the truth. That hurt more. When? Christmas, after you told us about the credit line. I remembered calling her. She had sounded concerned. Then later, distant. Daniel had spoken to her between those calls. I nodded. I cannot forgive everyone today. I know. She sat beside me anyway. For 5 minutes, neither of us spoke. Then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Ask Daniel why he mentioned refinancing forms before Claire showed him the policy. I stared at it. Olivia read the message. Who sent this? I do not know. A second message arrived. Vanessa is safe. She is watching the hearing remotely through counsel. Olivia immediately called the number. No answer. Then she looked at the notebook. Find the insurance entry. I opened to the page. August 9th. Insurance policy arrived. Showed Daniel only first page. Before I explained, he said, they probably copied your signature from the refinancing forms. Olivia read it twice. Then she looked toward the courtroom doors. He introduced the policy on direct examination. So, he opened the subject. We can question him further. When court resumed, Judge Holloway looked tired. He reviewed the files. Then he addressed Daniel. Mr. Bennett, I have one question before we conclude for today. Daniel straightened. The judge held up the insurance application. You testified that your wife confronted you about this policy and threatened to destroy you financially. Yes. You also testified that you had no involvement in preparing the application. That is correct. The judge lifted the notebook. Mrs. Bennett recorded a conversation from the night the policy arrived. Gregory Shaw stood. Your Honor, the notebook is self-serving hearsay. The judge raised his hand. I am not admitting the entry for the truth of every statement. I am asking about Mr. Bennett's own alleged words after he introduced this incident in his testimony. Gregory sat down slowly. The judge looked at Daniel. According to the entry, before Mrs. Bennett identified the company, the amount, or the signature issue, you said, they probably copied your signature from the refinancing forms. Daniel's face remained still, but his right hand tightened around the witness stand rail. The judge continued. If you knew nothing about the policy, how did you know her signature had been copied? Daniel swallowed. She must have told me. The entry states she had not. She wrote the entry. Yes. She could write anything. The judge nodded. Then let us remove the notebook from the question. He held up a printed transcript. This voice recording, provisionally authenticated through device metadata, contains you saying the same sentence to Vanessa Cole 3 months before the policy arrived. Daniel turned toward his attorney. The judge leaned forward. My question is not whether Mrs. Bennett remembered correctly. The courtroom became completely silent. My question is this. Why did you rehearse your explanation 3 months before there was anything to explain? Daniel opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Judge Holloway waited. Daniel looked at Gregory. Gregory whispered, do not answer beyond the question. But there was no answer within the question. The judge asked again. Why did you prepare an explanation for a policy you claim you knew nothing about? Daniel stared at the desk. I do not remember. The judge sat back. Mr. Bennett, the problem is not that your wife remembered too much. Daniel slowly lifted his eyes. The problem is that you forgot what she wrote down. No one laughed. The truth was too heavy for laughter. Then the courtroom doors opened. A woman entered beside a federal investigator. Cream coat. Careful expression. Vanessa Cole. Daniel's face changed so completely that the entire courtroom saw the truth before she said a word. Vanessa had spent the morning meeting with prosecutors. Her attorney had sent the messages. She testified that Daniel created the investment plan, forged my signatures, and used Lily's death to explain the missing paperwork. She admitted helping him. She admitted taking money. Then Olivia asked the hardest question. Were you at the lake house the day Lily Bennett died? Vanessa looked at me. Yes. Why? Daniel asked me to bring loan documents. Did you call him? Yes. Did he leave the family gathering to meet you? Yes. How long? About 20 minutes. I closed my eyes. Vanessa's voice broke. When people started shouting that Lily was missing, Daniel told me to leave. Why? He did not want Claire to know we were already using her credit. A sound escaped my mother. I could not turn around. Olivia asked, did Daniel cause Lily's death? No. The answer mattered. He did not know she had gone toward the water. Neither did I, but afterward, he said the tragedy would explain any confusion in Claire's records. The courtroom disappeared around me. Daniel had not killed our daughter, but he had looked at the worst day of my life and seen cover. He had turned grief into an opportunity. That was the betrayal beneath every other betrayal. The judge froze all disputed assets. He denied Daniel's request for control of my firm. He ordered a full forensic audit. He referred the evidence for criminal investigation and stated that Daniel's testimony raised serious concerns of perjury, fraud, and witness manipulation. 3 months later, Daniel was charged. Vanessa accepted a plea agreement and agreed to restitution. Evelyn withdrew her statement. Eric cooperated. My father wrote me a letter that remained unopened on my kitchen counter for 6 weeks. Eventually, I read it. He did not ask for forgiveness. He wrote, "I believed the person who sounded certain instead of the person who was telling the truth." That sentence stayed with me. Certainty is persuasive. Truth is often shaken, incomplete, and afraid. But fear does not make truth false. The divorce took 11 months. Daniel lost his claim to my company. The hidden properties were sold. The fraudulent obligations were removed from my credit after the investigation. The lake house was sold too. Evelyn asked whether I wanted part of the proceeds. I said no. Some money costs too much to receive. I sold our home. People asked why I did not keep it after fighting so hard. Because winning the house would not return what happened inside it. Every room contained a version of me apologizing for noticing. I bought a smaller place with a wide porch and a fenced yard for Cooper. On the first night, I sat on the floor beside unopened boxes. The black notebook rested in my lap. Inside the back cover was my wedding ring. I turned through the pages. Lily says yellow like Lello. Daniel paid electric bill. Vanessa at lake house. Insurance policy. Christmas conversation. Threatened to blame me for Lily. Judge asked why explanation was prepared in advance. The notebook did not contain the whole truth. No notebook ever could. It contained enough truth to keep someone else from rewriting me completely. 6 months later, I hired a junior accountant named Maya. She arrived on her first day, carrying a black spiral notebook. When I noticed it, she looked embarrassed. "I write everything down," she said. "Good. My boyfriend says it is obsessive." I looked at her for a moment. Writing something down is not the problem. The problem is when someone needs you to forget. That afternoon, I bought a new notebook. Bright yellow. The black one belonged to the life I survived. The yellow one belonged to the life I chose. On the first page, I wrote, Lily's favorite color was yellow. On the second page, my name is Claire Bennett. And on the third, I remember. Truth does not always sound confident. Sometimes it shakes. Sometimes it cries. Sometimes it forgets small details. But a lie still has to survive every question. And one honest question can be enough. So let me ask you something. If the person you loved kept telling everyone you were confused, how long would it take before you began doubting yourself? Would you confront them immediately? Or would you quietly gather the truth? And which betrayal would hurt more? The stolen money, the false testimony, or learning that the people closest to you asked your husband whether your own memories were real? I used to believe strength meant never being uncertain. Now I know strength can look like writing down one sentence while your hands are shaking. It can look like calling a lawyer before you are ready to call your marriage over. It can look like refusing to forgive people simply because they finally admitted you were right. Daniel believed grief had made me weak. He was partly right. Grief changed me. It made me tired, distracted, afraid. But it also taught me that surviving is not the same as feeling strong. Sometimes surviving means leaving a record for the version of yourself who will one day need proof. My husband testified against me in court. He used our daughter's death, my grief, my business, and my own family to make me look unreliable. For years, he believed the calmest voice would always win. Then the judge asked one question. Why had Daniel prepared an explanation before there was anything to explain? And for the first time, his story had nowhere left to hide. Which moment exposed Daniel most clearly? The notebook entry, Vanessa's recording, or the judge's question? Share your answer in the comments. And subscribe to Real Stories of Women for more original emotional stories about betrayal, courage, justice, and the moment a woman finally chooses to trust herself.